This is a very special moment because since 9 o'clock until 12:30, just a while ago, I've been standing. I'm standing at a place like this, but not facing you, but facing our legislature members, having been asked for the past almost 4 hours. And thanks to the chairperson of today's session, after she heard that this arrangement was made about a couple months ago, so she agreed to let me go for 2 hours. And at 2:30, I'll have to be there standing for the rest of the afternoon, answering questions from each individual legislator from different parties. So you are looking at me, I'm in a very compressed state of mind. And Andrea was asking me if I would like to have a couple more minutes sitting there and eating and drinking. I said no. In times like this, my stomach is locked. And I might as well stand up here as quick as possible so that I can change my mindset, because I'm very happy to be here. I have looked at the Taiwan white paper of 2012, presented by the American Chamber of Commerce. Of the 30 items for early action, which range from agriculture to insurance, from banking to transportation, and from education to tourism, there is no mention of culture. It probably means 3 things. 1, culture in Taiwan is doing so splendidly that it needs no mentioning, you know? And possible reason number 2, there is so little American involvement or investment in the cultural sector in Taiwan that it's not worth mentioning. Or reason 3, before May 20th of this year, in the Republic of China, there was no Ministry of Culture, so you had nobody to address your complaint to, and therefore you leave it. Now I'm happy to inform you that yes, we do have a Ministry of Culture now in Republic of China. And when I was preparing for this speech, I was thinking, well, what am I going to talk about? What I'm going to share with you today here? There have been quite a few prominent leaders and speakers here speaking to you, especially during election time. And most of them have expounded on political and economic business issues. So am I going to present to you a business report from my ministry as well? Well, yes, I could tell you that the Ministry of Culture comprises 4 other ministries, including the Council for Cultural Affairs, from the Government Information Office, which had been very important before, part of the R&D ministry, and part of the Education Ministry. I could also talk about my budget. Next year, the total budget approved is going to be $550 million if supported by the legislators, which is a small budget, but I have no complaint at all because we are one of the very few ministries we got an increase. We got a plus. Most of the other ministries got minus. So we are not happy about the amount, but absolutely no complaint. We're thankful. But am I going to talk to you about my ministry? I decided, oh, please no, because I've been doing that all morning, and I'm going to do that again this afternoon until 5, 6, 7, I don't know. And then I'm going to do exactly this for many days to come. So I decided, with American Chamber of Commerce, I'm going to have some fun. And so And it is not healthy to mix lunch with business talk anyway. So what I like to do with you today is to share with you a little bit of Taiwanese history, offering you a glimpse into the cultural mindset of Taiwan in the hope that you may have a deeper understanding of the islands and the people here. Some of you might have seen the performance of the Cloud Gate dance theater. Can you raise your hand if you have seen it? Cloud Gate? Okay, about 1/5. Okay, so the 4/5 of you must go. And you might also be very familiar with the works of Taiwanese filmmakers such as Hou Xiaoxian and An Li as well. And how many of you have seen Hou Xiaoxian's movie? Raise your hand. Okay, if you have not, you should. And some of you might know that the Taiwanese pop music tops the greater Chinese market. And some of you might have been told that the works of Taiwanese writers and public intellectuals are widely read in China, in Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Singapore. So what is behind this cultural vivacity, and why so? So allow me to go into history a little bit. Taiwan, a Japanese colony for a good 50 years, was still struggling with the post-war recession when, in 1949, its 6 million population received almost overnight an influx of 2 million Chinese escaping from the Civil War, which is a brutal conflict that had been running actually since 1927. So when we think back on the Chinese Civil War, we kind of think, well, it started somewhere 1949, which is not true. It actually started in 1927, which was only become unbearable in the late 1940s. So here you have these 6 million Taiwanese living on this island, having gone through the Japanese time. And then overnight you have 2 million influx of the Chinese from the mainland. These 2 million Chinese, which include my own parents, had endured 8 years of devastating war against Japan and 4 years of bloody civil war with the communists. So who are the Taiwanese? They are these 8 million people in 1949. They are these 8 million people who, during World War II, had been pitched against each other. And after World War II, were trying to cope with economic devastation, displacement, and the huge task of learning to live and work together, forming some kind of an identity. So that was the tremendous task, starting actually 1945 to 1949. Then we entered the 1950s. Totally defeated by the communists, the nationalist government, who now ruled Taiwan, felt they had to secure Taiwan against communist infiltration as well as possible physical taking over. So martial law was declared, which started the so-called White Terror period of the early 1950s. Thousands of students and intellectuals, as well as anybody suspected of espionage for the communists or just reading the wrong book, were executed. Freedom of expression was deprived before 1982. No ordinary Taiwanese were even allowed to apply for a passport. So if you grew up in Taiwan, you remember those days. As oh my God, then how did you guys grow up, you might ask? Well, as children, we all learned to write calligraphy, and some of you might still be doing that. In our little satchel, when we were school children, We had brushes and ink stone. In the classrooms, we sat down, added a little water into the ink stone, rubbed it, and we started writing with the brush. We memorized poetry from the Tang and Song dynasties and learned the Analects, 论语, from Confucius by heart. You know, sometimes when I look at Mr. Hu Jintao or Mr. Ma Yingjiu, or Mr. Lian Zhan, and they would talk to each other over the strait in air, and they often use the 16-character expression or 8-character expression, 八字真言, 16字真言. I look at it and I thought, where does that come from? I think it comes from 论语, from Confucius, you know. We quoted Confucius all the time. Do you realize that? Well, for example, to having friends coming from afar, what a pleasure is it? 有朋自远方来不亦乐乎. You simply mean to say hi, and you have to quote Confucius. We quote Confucius, and so much so that our Chinese colleagues from China mainland, when visiting us 60 years later, would say to us, hey, hearing you Taiwanese talking to each other sounds like walking into a scene from some ancient books, kind of a bookish. And when we became teenagers, our reading list was extended. Who are on our reading list? Well, it depends on the generation. I'm talking about my generation, of course, or maybe people 10 years younger than me, and maybe even 20 years, okay? And now it's probably very different. Well, on our reading list, when we think back, we had Alexander Dumas, we had Zola, we had Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, War and Peace, Anna Karenina. And now thinking back, oh my God, you are 15, you're going to high school, and you're reading Anna Karenina. My God, how much do you understand, you know? But we did. And we were reading Mount Crystal, you remember? 基督山恩仇记. And we were reading A Tale of Two Cities, Dickens, 双城记. And we were reading poetry of Tagore, 泰戈尔诗集. We were reading the poems of Walt Whitman when we were teenagers. And we were reading the novels of German writer Hermann Hesse, translated into Chinese. And that is why I read one of his novels, Siddhartha, Siddhartha, from Hermann Hesse. And when I was 15. And that is why when I first moved to Germany in 86 I moved to Switzerland. 88 I moved to Germany. I happened to mention this book and the author, Hermann Hesse. I was shocked that on this table I was the only foreigner and all the others were Germans. None of them had read it. It was a real shock to me because he was out of fashion, you know, and we were reading it. And what might surprise you, very high on the list were names like Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, 叔本华, and Kierkegaard, 齐克果. My God, nobody reads Kierkegaard. And we were teenagers of the 70s and students of the 70s, and we were reading Kierkegaard, I mean, existentialism, 存在主义. And of course, Simone de Beauvoir and Sartre, you know. In the early 70s, when you try to get a girl's attention, if you are a man, and you try to get a girl's attention, you carry under your arm a book, which would reveal your intellectual status. And the book you carry was something like Soulsearching Zarathustra. That's German. I don't know how it is translated into English, but in Chinese it's that 查拉图斯特拉如是说. That's a Chinese joke. I still remember it because all the guys who pretend to be intellectual carry a book like that, and how much they understand, I have no idea. But so Zarathustra. So that was the time. The political background was the White Terror. You read the wrong book, you get into jail, and you get executed. And as teenagers, as students, you were reading all of this. And we were reading, of course, Farewell to Arms of Hemingway. And we knew a lot of literary works, and even Steinbeck, and all those were on our reading list. It's quite crazy. To this day, it's a mystery to me how knowledge transmits itself. In 1997, I went to a town called Weimar, in East Germany, in then still East Germany, on the other side of the Berlin Wall. And I went to Nietzsche's home. And that was the time when I realized that the East Germans, for many, many decades, they were not allowed to read Nietzsche, and they did not know Nietzsche. And then I thought, well, we were teenagers in Taiwan, and we were reading Nietzsche. How funny this cultural map is. So if you ask me, well, during those times, those very pale time of political constraints and all that, well, what did you listen to? We were reading all that stuff, and what did you listen to? As school children, we learned to sing German Lieder. Can you believe that? Art songs. And we sang, for instance, Lorelei by Heinrich Heine. Can you sing Lorelei? 罗雷莱会唱吗? You can't. Who can? Tell me. The song Lorelei. Did any one of you grow up in Taiwan? But anyway, when we were school children in music classes, we were singing Lorelei, okay? And we were singing Der Lindenbaum from Franz Schubert. The Lindenbaum, it's actually the linden tree. It means the linden tree, and somehow it's translated into Chinese into a different tree. Do you know which song I'm referring to? 菩提树. I believe everybody who has grown up can sing that song. Well, can you sing just the first line for me? 菩提树. Go ahead, how do you sing that? Beautiful. Beautiful, yeah. Precisely. And we grew up with this kind of songs in school without really knowing what it is. Yeah. Of course, it took me many, many years later on to realize, oh my God, even wong, 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 wong. And that's German. We did not know. And later on, many years later, I realized 两只老虎, that's French. That's Bruder Jakob, brother. Yes. So that's the music education we were receiving in that time of pressure and isolation. So as students of the 1970s, we listened only to American pop music, only. If you were listening to songs sung in the Chinese language, 国语歌曲, you were looked down upon as somebody who has no culture. In the 70s, classical music was for those who pretended to be high-minded, and soft rock for those who pretended to be in. So you would hear Beethoven's Fifth Symphony with bang, 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 coming out of a crummy dormitory in the student quarter. And dancing in the 70s was considered lurid. Lurid, how do you say it in Chinese? What is lurid? 不道德. Was considered lurid and was forbidden. So the students would hold dance parties in private homes. They turn off the lights and dance to the rhythm and beat of the Beatles, the Bee Gees, I'm revealing my age, right? Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Judy Collins, and etc. And I remember a police raid on such a party, and one of the students, while trying to escape, jumped down from the 6th floor, but he didn't kill himself. He broke his leg. So that was the 70s, the way we grew up. And if you continue to ask me, well, what kind of movies do you watch? We first watched Japanese movies when I was small, and the government banned it. And then we watched Western ones. Gone with the Wind, Roman Holidays, even Ben-Hur, and even spaghetti Western. High Noon, you pick up the gun and you shoot. We grew up with American movies. And even US films about World War II, through which we got an everlasting image of a stereotype German. Our impression of what a German is, it pops up an image. That's a World War II German soldier with a helmet. He will be so stupid that you knock at his head and he falls down. So that was the impression of what a German is about. Imagine my shock when I moved to Germany. When my son, I moved to Germany. I moved to Europe in 1986 with my 8-month-old son. And when he was 2, or between he was 2 and 3, when he was 3, we moved to Germany. And then he went to school there. And I remember when he was between 6 and 7, first grader, when Andy entered primary school in Germany, he came back one day with his very colorful satchel on the back, the backpack, and proudly showed me the new books from school, among which was a big map for geography. I thought it's a world map or a map of Germany. But no, it's not. It turned out to be a map. It's not even the map of the province of Hessen, where we live. That's near Frankfurt. It turned out to be a map of the village we were living in, a village of 18,000 residents, a real village. We opened the map on the floor, and you can see that the mother and son with our fingers followed each and every little stream and trail in and around the village, spelling out the names of each and every hill and valley, every forest and pond on that map. I was very impressed. We, as children in Taiwan, never learned about our own villages. I have never even seen a map of our village in southern Taiwan. We studied only the map of China at that time, throughout the decades. So we were able to give me an empty map of China, and then we could fill in the name of each province, and you get scores if you fill the right names into the right place. And of course, that was the map from before 1949, because the map after 1949 is not like that anymore. So we're filling out. They realized there is a study called historical geography. So what we thought was geography was actually historical geography. And we could recite the length of the Yangtze River and the thickness of the Great Wall and all that, but we never really studied our own villages. So that was really something very new to me when my son came back. So in 1971, Taiwan lost its seat in the United Nations, which was a shock to the people. But then people thought we still had the support of the United States, so it's all right. When the U.S. recognized China and broke diplomatic relations with Taiwan in 1978, the Taiwanese were devastated. The islands were going to sink, people thought, 1978. Then what happens? Soul-searching began. Soul-searching. Very fundamental questions were being asked, such as, well, if the whole world tells us now that we are not China, And we are not Chinese. And we are fake China and the wrong Chinese. So what are we? So who are we? So these kind of questions really come up to the surface after, in the end, around the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. So I would say today is the lunch party of the American Chamber of Commerce in kind of launching us into this soul-searching period. The Americans had contributed a lot. Following this train of thought, other questions arose. Students and young intellectuals and the media began to ask, well, what are our songs? What is our dance? What is our literature, and what should we write about? What is our movie? So I would actually call it, after 1978, getting into the 1980s, what we started out in Taiwan was kind of our movement. Students organized homegrown kind of a Peace Corps, left the cities and went deep into the fishing villages, farming communities, and they ventured into the mountains to Aboriginal tribes to do volunteer work, to take a look at the earth that they were standing on. More writers began to depict realities in the surroundings around them. Artists began to search for their own way of expression. With a very deep sense of crisis, feeling deserted by the world community, and very unsure of the future, the Taiwanese began the process of soul-searching. And as you must know, soul-searching, especially in a time of crisis, always brings solidarity. Because when you are left in a boat swept in storm, you huddle together. In other words, a new identity was quietly and perhaps unwittingly being formed on this land. This crisis brought in the era of what I would call cultural awakening. Cloudgate Theatre, or the U Theatre, which you must see too, the Our Song movement, the native literature movement, and many other social movements were all active forces in the 1980s. And today, Taiwan enjoys the position as a very small but robust cultural powerhouse of the Chinese-speaking world. Today, the Taiwanese are not very happy about the economy, as you know. And they are especially not happy about the fact that after 60 years, they are still shunned by the world community. And these two are actually intertwined. The economic difficulty and the international isolation do have a cause-effect relation here. However, under these constraints, the Taiwanese have managed to build a democratic system and develop a free society, which I would say is the absolute foundation and underpinning of a vibrant culture. So the Taiwanese really have come a long way. Next time, when you go see a performance of the Cloud Gate or the Youth Theatre, or you go to see the calligraphy of a lady called Dong Yangzi, and if you feel enlightened by them, or you simply feel inspired by them, please think about how they have come so far. And you probably also get an idea why the Taiwanese seem to be so compassionate about this place, which they called home. I thank you all. Thank you.